name is Jamel Demons, also faces murder charges in a criminal court case over the killings of Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr.
The case of YNW MELLY is one that is a bit more complicated than one would expect, because it would seem like a clear-cut case of murder, and yet the case has been going on for 2 years, and things just haven't seemed to have gotten much progress. That is until now, because apparently YNW MELLY has given a confession of sorts, and should it be real, it could change the game. But what does it all really mean? Allow us to break it down for you, but first, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to go check out everythingledlights.com for some of the latest lighting products out today. That's everythingledlights.com. You can also find a link to the website in the description down below, and don't forget to comment the hidden message in this video for a chance to win a $500 Amazon gift card. You heard me right, that's a $500 Amazon gift card. Good luck. Number 6, his crimes. Before we go to his potential confession, there are a lot of things to go over, including what has been going on with him in the meantime after his arrest. So let's talk about the act/crime that honestly got him arrested, as well as breaking down how it all fell apart around him after doing the crime.
So, Mr. Demons, you're facing 2 counts of premeditated murder, and the court does find probable cause. I further make a preliminary finding of proof evident presumption great. You will be held no bond. And of course, that's without prejudice to have a motion based on state v. off.
The state would also ask for no contact with Cortland Henry, direct or indirect.
It all started on October 26th of 2018 when YNW MELLY went to the hospital to get help for 2 of his friends. Or at least that's one way of interpreting events depending on who you are. Because in actuality, he had his friends Cortland Henry go to the hospital to get help for his 2 friends Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr. According to Cortland, when he reported the incident, him and his friends were driving out in the town in the early parts of the morning after a recording session when they were caught in a drive-by. By his account, a car pulled up to the passenger side of the car and unloaded on them. Though Cortland wasn't harmed, the others most definitely were not. Upon reaching the hospital, the 2 passed away, which usually would mean a closed case, if the story was believable, that is. Which obviously it wasn't, because as investigators examined the car and Cortland, they realized that certain things didn't line up as they should. For example, the car seemed to be relatively undamaged outside of only 8 holes, which wouldn't line up with the drive-by if they were unloaded upon by multiple people. Furthermore, it didn't make sense how Cortland didn't even have a scratch on him, and most importantly, the way that Williams and Thomas Jr. were hit. Investigators thoroughly examined the scene and found evidence that the drive-by wasn't an inside job that YNW MELLY was a part of. There were remains of the tool used found inside the vehicle. Usually the shelf lies either backwards or to the side of the used tool, not in front of it. Even in close proximity, it wouldn't have ended up as it were inside the car. In this case, the left rear side of the car, which is the opposite side of where the holes were located. When you have this many things not lining up, you know something is wrong. So they dug deeper into the events of that night, and they eventually found video evidence that showed Cortland, Williams, Thomas Jr., and YNW MELLY getting into the car that the others would be hurt in. And in the back left seat of the car, where the casings were found, was none other than YNW MELLY.
MELLY releases a video, according to the state attorney, saying, basically, you never shut up, we got you. If you add those 2 videos together, and they're both what the state attorney says they are, sounds like to me you have a motive and an admission of a murder.
If you're wondering why he wasn't at the hospital with Cortland, he admitted to police that after the incident, he got out and went off in another car, claiming he needed to clear his head after what happened to his friends, which would be fair if it were true. What police believe now happened is that after the recording session, all 4 did indeed get into the car, but then YNW MELLY went and took out Williams and Thomas Jr. Then, to help sell the lie, the 2 went and drove the car around to help create a story for themselves, and even helped damage the car to prove a drive-by happened. After setting up all that, YNW MELLY left, and Cortland went to the hospital. While it took some investigating, Demons and Henry were arrested for the unlawful passing of Williams and Thomas Jr. The arrest was legitimate, and the punishments they're facing are severe in every way, which only makes sense given the crimes they committed. Number 5, the severity of the crimes. The crimes that YNW MELLY and his co-conspirator did were bad enough, but in the eyes of certain courts, the punishment for these crimes should be execution, which might surprise some of you because there are many states that have abolished the death penalty. That is true, but Florida isn't one of them that has banned it. As for the reason for the penalty, this is because of the heinous nature of the crime. YNW MELLY hurt his, quote, friends in a very evil way. He was in the back of the car when the incident occurred, and the 2 didn't even have a glimpse of a warning. which also goes to show that the events were likely premeditated and Melly prepared himself to do the deed. The unlawful passing of a person is a serious thing, and the police know that when someone commits it, justice has to be served in one form or another. And given that he personally did the deed, that puts him front and center for this whole mess. But let's not forget here that this was just one part of the equation. What might be even worse than the acts of doing it himself is that he not only tried to cover it up, he had Cortland lie about what happened in order to hide what had happened. So that's 2 people gone, a cover-up, and a technical conspiracy. That's a lot of major crimes that he's been charged with, and the police definitely have proof that he did some, if not all of these acts. So should he go to trial, he won't get a slap on the wrist. Not in this case, and especially if the police themselves have a say in the matter. The only reason that this has been dragging on is because of timing, evidence, and various other factors, but many already consider him guilty in a large measure. Number 4, opinions. The phrase court of popular opinion is a term thrown around a lot in this world today, and it simply means that a group of people who can think for themselves will come to their own conclusions. And for YNW Melly, he's ticked off the wrong people in the form of the police. The police and other listeners that have heard his controversial breakout track, Murder on My Mind, all believe that the song that is used to personify who YNW Melly is as a person. This song does somewhat help us listeners visualize Melly's perspective on what had happened the night of the crime. It's come to the extent that they feel it could be evidence in his case. Well, it could be used to establish behavior and intent, even though it was made 18 months before the main incident in question took place. There's a lot of debate over whether this can technically happen or not, but those who have been watching over YNW Melly have made it clear that his music and actions aren't to be tolerated, which has led to a large debate over his crimes and his punishments, which brings us to number 3, the confession. A confession is a big deal in a court of law, and it's one of the ways for a court case to get sped up and head right into sentencing. But there's a bit of a twist in regards to the confession that YNW Melly is supposed to have done. According to reports, the Broward County court system is reportedly reviewing an audio recording of YNW Melly confessing to the double murder of his 2 friends, Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr. and Anthony YNW Sack Chaser Williams. Attorney Todd Baker, who is representing YNW Sack Chaser Williams' family, told Complex that prior to the shooting, tension began to develop between the once cohesive group of friends about how the money should be distributed. When there are less people splitting up the prospective money, the people on the receiving end will get more. Also, according to Complex, there was a hearing from the case in August 2019 in which Broward County Assistant State Attorney Christine Bradley played a video that she says was found on Melly's phone. It was recorded 1 month to the day after Juvie and Sack Chaser were killed. In the hearing, she called it a video of Mr. Demons admitting to shooting 2 individuals in the head. In the video, Melly reportedly says, "There's no regret for that I did for that to die." And then, according to Bradley's description, puts a pen he's holding to his head as if it's a gun, mimes pulling the trigger, and throws up a Bloods gang sign. Then Melly continues, both of them never say when. So yeah, he didn't mean to confess because he likely thought he wasn't recorded when he said those things, but it's coming back to haunt him now. Not to mention, he can't dispute what he said because it is his voice, and he did say that he killed the 2 and even mocked the shooting itself. That was a pretty dumb thing to do, and now if this confession is approved, it could drastically change the case. He's in even more trouble than you realize. Number 2, being sued. It's true, as if being charged with murder and potentially getting executed wasn't enough, YNW Melly is now going to go and get sued by the families of the men he killed.
Attorney John Phillips represents the families for the victim, Christopher Thomas Jr. As I'm looking at this motion, you're literally going after everyone and their mother in this civil suit.
The Williams estate said that YNW Melly, whose full name is Jamel Maurice Demons, killed the men in a move to claim a bigger share of the money that they were earning through their work in the music business. Thomas family lawyer John M. Phillips told the outlet that a 2-year statute of limitation for civil suits in the case were expiring, explaining the timing of the suit. As for the monetary damages involved, Phillips said a jury would determine the amount, noting that in a wrongful death such as this, no amount of money will make the family whole. But that's the way the civil justice system works. Considering the nature of the crimes and the evidence that basically proves what Melly did, it'd be very easy to see a jury go full tilt and give millions to the family so that they can take care of themselves. Number 1, the state of waiting. Sadly, this is where things get a bit more murky, because while the confession is on the table and the civil suit is in play now, what happens next is still very much up for debate. If the confession is ruled admissible in court, it'll basically lead to YNW Melly being declared guilty. When and where the civil suit will play into that timing-wise is also unclear. But what is very clear is that the walls are closing in, as it were, with YNW Melly. There were rumors at one point in time last year and this year that he might just get out, but that seems to have slammed shut in various ways. How long he has left is unknown, but it's going to be painful for him as he waits for his verdict one way or another. And there you have it, everyone. A look at YNW Melly and how his situation might be changing in certain ways if his confession is indeed real. Do you think that the confession is real and genuine? Do you think that it could bring a true end to this case and finally settle some things so that the families of the victims can move on? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure